Hello and welcome to Dice Masters United. I'm Spug.
I'm Ben.
I'm James.
And I'm Peter.
Coming up in this episode,
we go old school with a focus on cards with the ally keyword. Which ones give the best helping hands and which should be left in the hero's HQ.
and after Peter managed to do an obscene amount of damage in one turn, we ask, what's the most you've swung for in a single round?
All that and more in the latest episode of Dice Masters United.
Okay, Spug here with a little bit of additional information on this latest episode. We recorded this about 3 weeks ago and were intending to put it out for the last episode, but put it back after the events of Roll for the North and the stunning success of Ben, Peter and James in finishing first, second and fifth. So well done to them. But this means that some of the stuff we recorded here, we just put back by a couple of weeks. So one or two of the references might be a little old. And also, Ben's not with us on this particular episode, sadly. He was otherwise engaged, but hopes to be back next time. Anyway, on with the show. Okay, well, most of the greatest characters and in comics and films have allies, people who help them achieve their heroic goals. And the game of Dice Masters is no different. We've had a slew of characters with the ally keyword over the years, and we wanted to throw a spotlight on some of our favourites and talk about a few ways they might be used in teams. Now, if you're relatively new to the game, you might not know what an ally is in Dice Masters because it's a keyword that's not present on any card currently in the modern rotation, which I think is a bit of a shame. But James, what's the official definition of the ally keyword?
Character dice with the ally ability count as a sidekick while in the field zone in addition to their other designations. They don't count as sidekick dice while in the bag, prep area, used pile or anywhere else.
Nice. Thank you very much. So what does that basically mean in practice?
Exactly what it says.
Yeah, okay.
Any benefits that you could gain from, I don't know, knocking out psychics, for example, you would also gain from knocking out an ally because it is a sidekick. And it also counts as fielding a sidekick. Basically, anything that checks for you having fielded a sidekick checks after it's been fielded, by which time it is already a sidekick.
Excellent. And so we just wanted to talk through a few that we enjoyed playing with. And obviously, this is very much a golden era discussion because there are no cards, as we said, in the modern rotation that have the ally keyword. But should we start kind of where it all began, really, with the Amazing Spider-Man set and probably the original kind of maybe the OG ally in the form of Mary Jane. Peter, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Mary Jane from the Amazing Spider-Man set?
Yes, particularly about the rare one, Mary Jane MJ. She has a when-fielded ability, and she gives Overcrush to a non-villain, and maybe also +1 attack. I am not sure about that.
You don't have these cards in front of you. Sure.
No. I just sorted my collection, and she's in a box somewhere.
When fielded, target non-villain character die you control gains Overcrush this turn. If you targeted Spider-Man, he also gets +1 attack. So,
that was the thing. Yeah. And I think that also Aunt May was also an ally in that set.
She was.
The Mary Jane MJ was. I didn't buy a lot of Spider-Man packs because the set wasn't that great, but I did get the Mary Jane, and so I was really happy about that. And so I played around with that a lot because it was one of my first cards, and it's a really great ability, and it's also particularly good with the Red Eyes Black Dragon, which James and Ben have used to great effect because she can give the Red Eyes Overcrush, and she's also a sidekick that will make Red Eyes even bigger when you KO, because Red Eyes says when you attack with it, you KO all the sidekicks, and it gets +1 attack for each sidekick that was KO'd, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you are very much making this up on the hoof. He's the red eyes black dragon from the Yu-Gi-Oh set says when this monster attacks knock out all sidekicks, this monster gets +2 attack for each sidekick.
+2 even.
Yeah, so
yeah,
he gets huge very quickly if you just got a bunch of sidekicks, and obviously.
So you're simultaneously pumping him, giving him Overcrush, and recycling your Mary Jane for next turn.
Exactly, if there is a next turn.
Yeah, well,
it shouldn't be.
You kind of hope. You hope there wouldn't be. If you can get him up to something big, but yeah, and because he's obviously he's a big 6 cost, so he's got some big attack stats on his own anyway. So I always really like this MJ, and she, I just thought she was great. That her, and as you mentioned, Aunt May, Peter it seemed very thematic, in the sense of these weren't kind of heroic characters in their own right. They were kind of heroes, I suppose, but not the kind of superpowered heroes that would help Spider-Man along his way. So kind of having it Mary Jane and Aunt May in the game was cool, and this seemed like a nice way of doing it. And obviously that overcrush ability that you could give to anything big was really cool. I mean, I've played quite a lot of the old Mr. Fix-It that gets when he takes damage, he gets plus X attack, where X is his printed attack cost. Obviously, that attack can get enormous very quickly, just with a few kind of pings from Magic Missile or something. And then if you can give it Overcrush with Mary Jane, then obviously he can get gigantic.
I like to think of it as poking the Hulk, not so much pinging as poking.
Yeah,
just to irritate,
get him angry.
Yeah, winding him up.
Do you think he'd even feel it though? You poked him, because his skin is obviously, his skin can withstand.
It depends where you're poking, mate.
Bullets. Did you have anywhere particular in mind?
No.
In the eye, maybe in the eye.
It's going to feel that.
His eyes a little bit. His eyes a little bit soft, and you just poke him there. Mary Jane, very much the kind of the OG of allies, but she was a good one. And there was also from slightly later, but there was the DC Bombshells OP kit, which had a Lois Lane in it, and she would give Overcrush to your Superman character dice, which was always a nice kind of thing in a fun Superman kind of team. You could get the Jimmy Olsen that would give you a discount on buying and fielding Superman, and then you could also use that in conjunction with the Superman, who gets a reduction for every Superman affiliated character that you had in the field. So you could buy cheap Superman and get them out, and then obviously with this Lois Lane, if you're giving them Overcrush, and that's really cool. The only downside of her was that she was a 4-cost character to buy in the first place, which is pretty expensive for this sort of character. I mean, most of the allies are kind of 2 or 3, aren't they? Really.
Yep.
And sadly, she did not have the Super Friend affiliation, which
that was an oversight. If she'd had that, that would have been really good, I think.
Yeah, because then you could actually with her in the field and Jimmy in the field, and that Superman that gets a cost reduction for every Super Friend you've got, there you could buy them for 2. You could buy the Superman for 2, which would be ridiculous.
Or one once you have another Superman out.
Yes. Yeah, that would be insane. And your opponent's not going to last very long, I don't think, with a bunch of Supermen jumping down their throats.
With Overcrush.
Exactly, with Overcrush. Yeah. So it's cool. Did you, Peter? Did you mess around with that Lois Lane? Have you even seen it?
I have it. I didn't mess around with it so much because I have lost my Jimmy Olsen dice. I have no. I think I may have lent them to someone and never got them back. But yeah, I did get to play a lot of Super Jimmy.
Cool. All right, shall we move on to Jane Foster, James? She's another she's another cracking kind of thematic ally, isn't she? I think.
We've jumped right ahead, haven't we? To confuse me from the one of the oldest to the basically the newest ally.
Yeah.
Is this the last one that existed? In fact.
Yeah, I think in terms of sets that have come out, that's probably true. Yeah, Thor was the last set that had.
I've got it up in the Dice Coalition team builder, and it's also brought up things like the half orc barbarian, the lesser known ally. And that comes up because it says, in addition to the one, it would norm ally gain.
Oh, yeah, just press space.
No.
Press space. Press space before...
Does that work? I've got space.
Before ally, yeah.
Before ally, yeah.
Oh, before ally, okay.
Yeah.
Done it. Right. Okay. Sorry, back to Jane Foster. She's got brilliant fielding costs of 000. She's each of her iterations is a 2-cost shield. She has awful stats, but what do you want from an ally? The most interesting, well, I suppose 2 of them are a bit interesting. The uncommon one says, while Jane Foster is active, your character dice with Immortal have a fielding cost of 0, and the rare is, while she's active, your character dice with Immortal costs 2 less to purchase to a minimum of 1.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting. Immortal is a keyword which says that Immortal says when a character die with Immortal would go to the use pile, not being fielded at the end of the main step, attacking and being unblocked or being sacrificed, etc. Instead, add that character die to its owner's bag. Character dice with Immortal that went out of play this turn go to the bag at the end of the turn instead of the use pile. Blimey. It's one of those.
Blimey,
This does not apply to dice initially being purchased, dice being swapped, or dice being spent as energy. Good grief. Get your head around that one. If they attacked, I think the main thing is if they attack and are unblocked, instead of going via out of play to your use pile, they go to your bag, so you might be pulling them again next turn and attacking with them. That's the point, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. They come around quicker.
Anyway, the relevance of all of this is not even particularly the Immortal keyword, although that's a little bit of an aside, because there is a Hela from the same set, from Thor. It would be the 7 cost. She's a 7 cost mask. She's got good stats. She has Immortal herself, so Jane, the rare Jane, would discount her by 2, which is pretty cool. And these days you could have Ask Her because it's a mask, and that would be another 2 off. So that would be, she'd only cost 3. And while Hela, I will keep on saying Healer, Hela is active, your character dice have Immortal. And I suspect there's a long story to this, but I think the conclusion was that it's because if Jane discounts the cost of buying them, then there would be absolutely no point in that ability if this ability didn't. Do you know what I mean? If it didn't apply,
if they had to be active in order for
it
to apply. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, that was the conclusion. Basically, that you didn't have to have any. You had to have Healer active, but the other ones, all of your other dice, purchased or not, active or not active, gained Immortal, whilst Hela was active. Which meant that Jane, the rare Jane, would also discount them. So all of your dice would then cost 2 less.
Yeah.
Or if they were masks, they would be 4 less if you had Ask Her out. And Patrick Parley, Shadowmeld, had a great team, which was one of those classic things where you take your control pieces and you turn them into beat sticks, basically. Right. So he was able to buy lots of cheap Wonder Woman reflections, which was the 5 cost that meant that you would ignore when fielded and when attacks, I think both.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So it shut down a lot of the stuff at the time, Shriek most obviously, but lots of other things. Nobby as well, I think. And she had great stats herself. And of course she would be made cheaper by Jane, and would be made even cheaper by Ask Her because she's also a mask. Yeah. And so he could have a massive field full of Wonder Womans and Hela, and then there was something that gave them Overcrush. Oh, it was the Yarnbjorn.
The Yarnbjorn, yeah, gave him +3 attack and Overcrush, I think.
2 Immortal characters. Is that how it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was his killing blow. And so, once you've got a nice field full of sort of 5/4 or whatever Wonder Woman is. Yeah, that was really good. I enjoyed that too.
And that would even count. I mean, I suppose your sidekicks would also get your sidekicks in the field would also count as immortal, wouldn't they? For that,
your character dice have immortal. Yeah, I guess so. Now character dice while they're in the field. So that was a really good combo with what's her name, Jane something.
Jane Foster. Yeah. So Jane's got something in common with April, who's another ally from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles set. She's kind of got that classic. She's a 2-cost shield, and she has in addition to being the ally, she has the turtle power keyword, which says while April is active, other Turtles character dice cost 1 less to purchase to a minimum of 1.
Oh, she's actually the Heroes in a Half Shell. She's from the second set, because she appeared in both. This is No Mere Damsel, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, she's from Heroes in a Half Shell.
Yeah, so she's the classic kind of enabler character, isn't she?
The card that also almost made Turtles work.
Yeah. Yeah. So April is another kind of a good kind of discounting one. Should we move on to Alfred? Who's almost the classic kind of ally, isn't it? And another supremely thematic ally character. Peter, do you want to tell us about him?
Yes, so it's Alfred MI5. He has the ally keyword, and he when he's KO'd, you can roll a sidekick or Batman character from your use pile, and if you roll an energy, you return Alfred to the field on level 1.
Yeah.
So that is very abusable. So if you have a sidekick dice in your use pile, you have a 5 out of 6 chance of returning him to the field.
Yeah.
And so you could sacrifice him or KO him multiple times for some effect, and he would keep coming back most of the time. And there are several teams which can abuse this, like the Dick Grayson rare that would get an attack buff whenever a Bat Family character, which Alfred is, would die, and you could just do that repeatedly with something like Fabricate, or the global on the rare Green Goblin from AVX that could KO a sidekick to deal 1 damage to something. Mm-hmm. And you could just keep doing that and get a huge Dick Grayson, and you could just smash your opponent's face in.
That Dick Grayson character was so strong with Alfred, because he said when a Bat Friend character dies KO'd, Dick Grayson gets +2A and +2D and deals combat damage to your opponent instead of blockers, even if blocked until end of turn. So it's like insane, because basically you just needed to get him to the attack step, and if you'd managed to knock out Alfred a few times and bring him back successfully, he could have silly attack really quite quickly.
You could do a similar thing with the Vibranium Shield, Uncommon Vibranium Shield from Civil War. The text of which I forget, but basically it's a continuous die which sits in your field, costs 3, probably a shield cost, I would imagine. And every time one of your characters is knocked out, all of your other characters get +2 defense.
Yes.
And it's continuous, so it just sits there, so unless your opponent has some way of removing it, it's not going away. And of course, it works for every KO that happens, and it also stacks. There's no reason why it wouldn't stack. So if you have 2 of them there, then you would get +4 defense for each KO that happens. And then you just need some way of converting that defense into attack. So like a flip global, like Kal-El at the time. From this set? Was Kal-El from this set?
He was from World's Finest,
World's Finest, right? Yeah. Or these days it would be Bizarro, and previously it was Ant-Man. And then some way of getting it through. And of course you could use Alfred in exactly the same way. You would get a couple of Alfreds. I was trying to play this in the legacy format of Dice Fight the other day. I think I've played it several times. Unfortunately, we haven't eliminated enough of the filth for Alfred to be quite successful yet. But I'm determined that one day it will.
One day.
One day, Alfred.
One day you'll have his moment in the sun.
a few Alfreds in the field, and you fabricate them with the flesh column that requires just a total purchase cost of 3. And that knocks your Alfreds out, and it's this KO and then return that is so powerful, because unlike what's it called? What were we talking about the other day, Peter? This regeneration, is that what it's called? No, wait.
Regenerate,
yeah. Because that is a KO replacement, and so anything that it regenerates never actually KO'd. So it doesn't trigger when KO'd effects, but Alfred does. And so you can, if you have to set it up right, and you really need to have a psychic in your use pile, which you might need to use create food and water for example. And you would repeatedly KO the Alfreds with using the fabricate ability, and they'd come back again, and you would do it 4 times, so that would be 8 KOs. So if you had 1 vibranium shield in your field, that would be plus 16 for all of the characters that were not KO'd. And they could be some more psychics. So you would very often go wide, and if not, then you could have Vigilante Justice, which KOs an opponent's character for every one of yours that's KO'd. Now, if you're KOing your Alfreds 4 times, you can remove their field quite effectively. Super cool. Alfred's great. I once played. I like Alfred so much. This was nothing to do with his ability, but I once played him. I may have mentioned this once before. I seem to remember, but I played him in a tournament on a ridiculous. Because there's a Falcon from UXM called Falcon Recon, the uncommon, I think, which gives sidekicks, makes them unblockable, right, when he attacks, which is a stupid ability in light of other cards that have come out that give buffs to sidekicks, for example. And I played and I apologise now, but I played a stupid team with him and Alfred and Bard, that half-elf Bard. So half-elf Bard gives everything a buff for your... everything gets +1 for each different character die that you have in the field.
Yeah.
And that adds up pretty quickly when you've got a few different characters.
Right.
And then Alfred is an ally, so he's a psychic, so he's made unblockable by Falcon. And that was my flying Bard kicks team. And I think I won a match, and I got a bit overexcited and started shouting, "Alfred, Alfred, Alfred!" And I'm sorry about that, and I will be for the rest of my life.
Not your finest moment, AJ.
Not my finest moment. Though I did go once dressed with a bow tie in Alfred's honour. I had a bit of a relationship with Alfred. He was my character.
He's your kind of gent. Should we talk a little bit about that flying sidekicks team, though, wasn't it? Because that is a good, although the key component doesn't necessarily have any allies in it, if you see what I mean. It is actually a team that does kind of fire with, if you've got some nice beefy allies already, wouldn't it? So who wants to tell us about Falcon Recon and some flying psychic action?
So as James mentioned, the Falcon Recon, when he attacks, your sidekicks become unblockable. And so all you really need is some sidekicks with good stats, and then you will kill your opponent very quickly. So there are a couple of characters that give all of your sidekicks +1/+1, like Green Goblin Lord from the AVX set, which is one of the least played Green Goblins.
It is,
because of the other Green Goblins, but it's really good. It has good stats. It's a 3 cost, and it gives all of your sidekicks +1/+1.
Yeah, really good.
So that was a really good one. There was a Captain America and a Stargirl that did the same, but they were 4 costs. But if you have a bunch,
Angel for 3 as well.
Angel, that was when he attacked, and it was a little trickier, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But so you have a bunch of sidekicks, and you give them huge stats. I mean, you could use Bard if you have no honor, but
no shame.
No shame.
What's the point?
But the more fun versions would use something else, and then you have a bunch of maybe like even if you have 2 attack sidekicks, that really starts to add up if they're unblockable. And other versions of the team would use the front line basic action, which gives unblocked character +3 attack. So then you have a bunch of 4 attack sidekicks, and then you only need 5 to kill your opponent. So it gets out of hand fast.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and it does. And I mean, anything unblockable. And you kind of think that it's a good job in a way that these things are not are not around now, because they would be roundly abused, and I don't think that would be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, stopping one big thing is one thing, but stopping a whole bunch of big things is difficult.
Yeah, that was one of the beauties of it, wasn't it? This was the first team that my daughter's 11 now, where she started playing when she was 6, and she would play, and still to this day loves playing flying sidekicks with specifically with Falcon, Angel, and Green Goblin. It's nothing to do with allies necessarily. You could slip them in there, but that was a really important. What's the word when you? I can't think what the bloody word is. A seminal team. That's what it was.
Good word. And actually, there is something in common with this kind of a team with the fish slap kind of archetype. Peter, do you want to talk a little about the fish slap? And well, there's one particular ally that fits perfectly into that.
Yeah, so the fish slap was sort of like a modern day flying sidekicks team when it was still modern legal.
Yeah.
It featured Wong, expert of Camartage. It's a 2-cost ally. He has good stats. He has fast on top of that. And the idea was to use the fish slap name comes from the Atlantis action, which has a fish on the die. Yeah. And when you use that, whenever you field a sidekick, which allies qualify as, you get to draw and roll 2 dice. Yeah. So if you have some other sidekicks, and you have the one of these sidekick fielding globals, and you could roll a bunch of dice. You could buy stuff and roll that right away. And before you knew it, in one turn, you could get a whole bunch of extra dice, and then you would use something that would buff your whole team. I think mostly in the Fish Lab team, it was the Black Widow that gives +1 attack to all your characters when it's fielded.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And then you could go wide with a whole bunch of strong sidekicks and just kill your opponent.
That team was created by OG Fish Slapper Petr Ježík from Slovakia, Ješko online, and I'm sorry I'm reminiscing today, but one of the very first competitive games I played was against him, back in the day, and he was actually playing a flying sidekick team with the Green Goblin and Imprisoned, and I walked in there with Bard, thinking he took me apart. he taught me a proper lesson, and it was really beautiful to see him effectively recreate effectively the same archetype but with different tools. Probably 4 years later, I guess. Really good. Great brewer he is.
At the end of the game, did he start chanting "Angel, Angel"? Angel?
No, because he's got a great deal more decency than I have.
Because he's got class.
Indeed.
Could we make an argument for that Wong is the best of all the ally characters? I'm thinking, based on his all-round sort of utility and his stats, most kind of primarily.
No, Alfred.
You think Alfred's better? What do you think, Peter?
I personally really like the 0 fielding cost all across the board allies, and Wong doesn't have that. He has 1 on 2 of his sides. He has good stats, but I don't. In a vacuum, maybe he would be the best ally. If you just had the Wong and nothing else, he would be better than the other allies. But in terms of combo potential and such, there are more fun things, I would say.
Yeah, he has got great stats, and I think that's part of the reason why he's so good in that Fish Lap team, because he's only a 2-cost fist, and he has 4 attack on his level 3 phase. And once you get +1 or +2 to that with a bit of Black Widow fielding, then he can get to 5 or 6. It starts to rack up pretty quickly, and suddenly your 2-cost character is getting really beefy. There
are a couple of others which we should mention, perhaps stronger than that even, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Is the Foot Ninja Syndicate, right?
Oh, yes.
From the first Mutant Turtle Ninja thing.
Yeah.
Which is an ally. It's 3 cost, which is a shame, but it's a 3 cost bolt. And it has stats which are not that impressive, 011, 021, and 122. So it does have a fielding cost on its top level. But it's an ally which gets +1 attack and +1 defense for each sidekick die in the field zone. And since it doesn't specify your field zone, that counts both yours and your opponent's.
Yeah.
And, if you force some sidekick fielding with something like, Golden White Tiger Global, or in modern, the Instant War action die, that gets big pretty quickly. And also they count each other, so if you had a couple of them, they would buff each other.
Yeah.
So, and then add to that something which was often used in the Fish Slap team, or in variations at least of it, which was the Insect Plague Global, which was pay a mask, and you can make a sidekick unblockable for that turn. And obviously that includes allies. So, get your Foot Ninja out. If you've got 3 sidekicks, they've got 3 sidekicks. What's that? +6. So that's 7 attack. Pay a mask, make it unblockable. That's cheap and nasty, that.
Yeah, that is. The shame about those Foot Ninjas are that they were... it's a 3 cost, which is obviously slightly more on the pricey side for an ally, but probably maybe more pertinently, it's a max 3, which I always thought was.
Give over with the moaning about max 3.
Well, actually,
if you're buying 3 of them, then if you were going to try and buy 4 of them, you're doing something wrong. Come on.
No, but there was also a 2-cost version of that Foot Ninja that had Swarm, and
exactly.
For that one, it was really sad that there were only 3 max.
But
that
Swarm,
was really irritating.
I will allow you, but not otherwise.
This one, if you have 3, you should be winning. Fair enough.
Well, indeed, yeah.
The second iteration of the Foot Ninjas was not. There was nothing there for me. Wasn't that impressed in the Heroes in a Half show? It was a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah.
No, exactly. James, there's a Jarvis, isn't there, that you wanted to mention?
There is a Jarvis. There are not too many more, are there? There's a few odds and sods. So we should mention. We'll come back to that later. But Jarvis, he's from the Iron Man War Machine team pack.
Yes, of course.
Starter set, which was I quite enjoyed that. I mean, it's not maybe not massively competitive. I mentioned Rhodey. He was from that. So Jarvis was interesting. He has a few interesting abilities, but in the interest of time, the most interesting perhaps was the one that cost 5. I think it's officially the most expensive ally. There are a few other 4s, but nothing that costs 5.
Yeah.
It was a 5-cost mask. He had 0 fielding across the board, which was lovely. Awful stats, like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3. No, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. He was an ally, and when fielded, he gained X life, or you gained X life, where X is the number of character dice you fielded this turn. Not really interested in it for that ability, but rather for the fact that he's 5 and he's a sidekick. So using the Insect Plague Global, you could make him unblockable. Big deal, you say. He's got rubbish stats. Why would you want to make Jarvis unblockable? He's just this, old butler type. He's not going to do much damage. But the thing is, he's 5, and there's a die called Nowhere, an action die called Nowhere, the rare version of which allowed you to swap a die in your use pile or field, I believe. You could use the die, and then you would swap a die in your use pile or field for one which cost 1 more. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then the modern equivalent I asked about last week is the name that we can't remember, but it doesn't work in the field. The new one from the wrestling set, whatever it's called. It's up to 2 more, but you can only do it in a use pile, I think. But the rare.
So Jesse Owens, I think, as we called it last week.
Jesse Owens show.
Which is a man running very fast, I think, isn't it?
But rare Nowhere you would be able to use in the step, the global window after blockers are assigned, and you would be able to use it on dice in the field, which meant that you could swap your Jarvis for something which costs 6. Now, can you think of something which costs 6, which you might want to make unblockable? I think I can.
Fix It.
Yeah. So you could, yes. And this my partner in crime back in the day, Zach, created this. I think he certainly, as far as I was concerned, he came up with this, and he played this in a few tournaments, and it was great. So you attack with your Jarvis, make him unblockable, or rather make him unblockable, then attack with him. They can't block him, and then after the blockers are not assigned, you swap him in with your rare nowhere for a ping fixer a couple of times. Profit.
Job done. Excellent. And while we're on the subject of Jarvis, Peter, you wanted to mention Howard Stark, who obviously...
Yes, it's from the same starter. The expert businessman one. He has a bit of a tricky timing thing going on. But his ability can be really strong. He says, at the start of your turn, you may sacrifice this character die. If you do, other character dice you control gain +2 attack until end of turn. So you have to do it at the start of your turn, so it will only pump characters that are already active. But if you have something like flying sidekicks and you already have a bunch of sidekicks active, you could give them all +2 attack. And if you have 2 Howard Starks, you could give them all +4 attack. Mm-hmm. So that really starts to add up. If only it had been KO, this would have seen play for sure. Mm-hmm. But you have to sacrifice him so he goes to your use pile instead.
Yeah. There's just one other thing that we wanted to mention, and that was on the Intellect Devourer, which is from the Trouble in Waterdeep set. And this has had an errata, but it has a global. That's the name of it. I can't even remember what the thing's called. It has a global that says pay 0. Once during your turn, you may spin one of your active NPC character dice, and that also means sidekick in D&D speak, to an energy face. Move it to your reserve pool. So that's pretty cool because it means you can pay 0 and you can move one of your allies into your reserve pool. And obviously, the allies all have a double energy face, so you can get kind of 2 for the price of 1 on that if you choose to spin down an ally rather
2
than...
for the price of 0.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Indeed, that's true.
And that's different from the old psychic spinners like Cyborg and I don't know, Clayface and stuff, and Billy Club and
Grodd.
Grodd, which only allowed you to spin to a single energy face, I believe.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. Yeah. Are there any characters that we feel that thematically maybe have been missed and should have had the ally keyword at some point in the game? Any that spring to mind?
Well, for the longest time, when I started playing, actually, the person teaching me was telling me about sidekicks and the ally keyword, and that characters with ally would count as sidekicks. So the first question I asked was, does Robin have the ally keyword? And at the time, that wasn't the case. But they fixed that in the Batman set, because he does have ally there. Yes. So because to me, he was the classic sidekick.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they fixed that. But another one that I feel should have had maybe the ally keyword is Pepper Potts.
Oh, right.
That would have made sense to me.
Although she's pretty heroic, isn't she, in her own right?
These days.
Well, not
you
the
could
Pepper
say that of
Potts
Jane Foster, though. Right?
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
This is the Pepper Potts before she becomes, the thing.
Rescue,
yes.
Yeah. That's true.
So Jimmy Olsen is not an ally either, is he? He should have been an ally for sure.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. He's
just a regular person.
He is. Yeah, he totally should have been an ally. Well, I bet there are some other examples. Yeah, which other characters in Dice Masters do you know that you think should have been given the ally word? Do let us know. Get in touch using the contact details at the end of the show. But in the meantime, I hope you found that useful and interesting. Hope it inspired you to go and play some ally teams. And with that, we'll move on to the next segment. Okay, we all know that in Dice Masters, the aim is to do 20 damage to your opponent, but there are occasions where we can do, well, a fair bit more damage to our opponent than that. And that's exactly what Peter managed to do in the most recent edition of Dice Fight. So, Peter, tell us about your team and what happened.
This was for the Dice Fight that had the theme Autumn Colors. Uh-huh. The dice had to be orange, red, brown, or yellow, and it was also appropriately an orange event. So it was competitive, but not crazy competitive.
Yeah.
So I was going through my collection and looking at what dice I could possibly use, and I came across some fun stuff that I had played around with in the past, and mainly the promo Robin, Teen Titans team leader.
Yeah.
And while he's active, if your Teen Titans die on an energy phase in your reserve pool during your main step, you may spin down a Teen Titans die to spin up a Teen Titans die.
Okay.
And so this ability doesn't have a limit of once per turn. So people assume that you can do it as many times as you like.
And it doesn't have a cost.
No, it doesn't cost anything to do that.
It's free. You can just do it.
Yeah.
With impunity.
So the trick is to get another Teen Titan that has an abusable ability to go along with that Robin.
Okay.
And no such Teen Titan exists, but there's the Infiltrate basic action. It's a 3 cost, and it says target character gets +3 defense and gains 1 team affiliation of your choice until end of turn. So with that, you can turn anything into a Teen Titan. And so my chosen target for that, I had 2 targets for that. First, I would use Storm, Misspent Youth from the X-Men First Class set. She's uncommon. She has Awaken, so when she spins up, you prep a die from your bag.
Yeah.
So I would use that for ramp, and then I would ramp into the uncommon Sunfire from the same set. The subtitle is Moe Agaru, I believe. And he has Awaken, character dice you control, gain +1 attack and +1 defense till end of turn. So if you can spin him up a whole bunch of times, you get a bunch of huge characters. And what do you do with huge characters? Well, you can attack with them, but that's boring.
Of course.
You can also use Orbital Strike. So that's a 4-cost basic action that says reroll all of your active character dice, deal damage to target opponent equal to the combined attack of all rolled dice, showing character faces, and KO the rest of the rolled dice. Skip your attack step this turn. So when you reroll the dice with this action, if they roll back on character, they keep the buff that they had. So what I aim to do is get a field, get the combo to go off, pump all of my characters by +20. So if even one of them rolled back, I would kill my opponent, guaranteed.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. and then you played a game where you managed to do it maybe more than once in a turn. What happened?
Yes, so I was playing against Nick Wally, who actually helped me build this team, so he had it coming. And so I took a while to set up, but in the end I had 3 orbital strikes purchased, and I rolled them all
on the same turn.
On the same turn, and I had a pretty big field, so I pumped them all up. Gave him a +20, and then I used the first orbital strike. And I believe 6 of them came back.
Oh, heck.
And I did 138 damage with the first orbital strike.
Right.
But yeah, so technically he was already dead. But we decided for fun to just keep going to see how far I could get.
Of course.
And so I rolled the second... I used the second orbital strike, and I think 3 of them came back.
Right.
So there was 60-something more damage. And then the final one, only 1 rolled back.
Oh.
But that was still another 21 damage.
So the total amount of damage you did in one turn was?
It was 226.
226. So actually enough to win 11 games of Dice Masters.
Yes.
In one foul swoop. That is pretty impressive. James, have you ever managed to do 226 damage in one turn?
No, but I did mess about with this for a video with Zach quite a while ago. Fixit's had several mentions today, and he's going to get another one.
Yes, yeah.
He was a source of great joy and pain, I think.
Yes.
Fixit, we should say again, was, I believe, the common Fixit who, in the previous segment, Spug has already told us what his text is, but if you can find it again, I'll be very grateful.
Yeah, he says that when he is dealt damage, he gets plus X attack, where X is his printed attack value until the end of turn, and his level 1 attack is 6, his level 2 attack is 7, and his level 3 attack is 8. So if you just get him on level 3 and just damage him a couple of times, he gets plus 16 attack.
Right, and damaging him would be done by poking him with magic missile, I think.
Poking, yes.
In the
not
eye.
pinging.
Yes, no, poking with magic missile. And yeah, so I made this video with Zach, which was in response actually to DM Armada's suggested that he had a little competition to see who could deal the most damage on turn 4. On the assumption that you would be completely unopposed. Okay, so you assume that your opponent is just kind of sleeping, just getting on with their business, not mitigating the damage in any way, not fielding any blockers, no blanking. So it's obviously not a realistic thing. It's just a bit of a thought experiment. And actually, before I got to Hulk, my first idea. Because the way to do these things is doubling, right? And as Peter's already mentioned, Infiltrate is a good facilitator for doubling because it allows you to give things, for example, the Avengers affiliation, which these days actually you can do with just a mask with the ID card.
And James, sorry to interrupt, but you're talking about Infiltrate, the basic action there, not Infiltrate, the keyword, which of course...
Absolutely, that is correct.
Yeah,
okay,
totally confusing.
So Infiltrate, as Peter mentioned, allows you to give an affiliation to whatever affiliation you want to a character of your choice.
Yeah.
And my original thought was to do this with the old Nick Fury from AVX, who allows Avengers to do double damage because double is always good. So you would give something fun the Avengers affiliation, or maybe just choose an Avenger. That would be easy enough.
Yeah.
Or you could use Infiltrate again. You could use it to give the Phoenix Force affiliation. Because there is the Phoenix Force Colossus has the global pay 2 fists, and your Phoenix Force characters, you double their attack and defense. So that's another way of doubling.
Yeah.
So you would double an Avengers attack with Nick Fury because they do damage twice, and you double it again with the Phoenix Force Global after having used Infiltrate. But I could only get it up to about 50, and that was not enough. So I turned to fix it. Yes, more. So the idea was, and we're not going to go into this in detail. In fact, I'll post it in the show notes, and I'll post a link to the video and also the explanation of how to do this. But I actually believe that our listeners can do better than this, because reading through this, it struck me that it was a little old-fashioned, actually, because I did this, it must be a couple of years ago. Yeah. And, at some point I actually paid full price for the Fix-It. I paid 6 of your English pounds for Fix-It, when these days that would be, it just seems a bit anachronistic.
It does.
These days we usually have discounts and stuff. So maybe you could remake this global or do something much better and do more damage, but we'll come to that. Anyway, basically, the team involved getting free energy by having the Black Lantern Batman or Superman, which has a global that says once per turn after your reroll, if you have at least one of each energy type in your reserve pool, gain 1 energy. So you have to pay nothing. You just get free energy if you have what is called in this case, a Black Lantern roll of 1 energy each. So that was a way of increasing my energy. I also used a lot of Professor X, the original Professor X, obviously, for ramp. So, pay a mask, move up to 2 psychic dice from your use pile to your prep area.
Yeah.
So that was a way of getting loads and loads of energy. I used Red Dragon Global for making action dice cheaper. It says pay a bolt when you purchase your next action die this turn. It costs 2 less, and you deal 1 damage to your opponent. Oh, back in the day, Red Dragon,
yeah.
And I used Rip Hunter's Global, which is now Becky's Global, to prep dice. Pay a shield. The first die you purchase this turn is added to your prep area. So loads and loads of globals. And one more, which I'll mention in a minute. But basically, that allowed me to get my Fix-It, and then I would give him use Infiltrate, which says target character gets +3 defense and gains 1 team affiliation of your choice until end of turn. So you could use that to give him the Phoenix Force affiliation and double his attack and defense, and then ping him mercilessly with all this energy that you've generated.
Poke, surely, James.
Poke him mercilessly. And because you need bolts, the last global was the Superwoman Lois Lane global, which says pay 1, generic. You may convert any amount of energy to bolts this turn. So as long as you had, like, I don't know, 10 dice, for example, 10 energy, you could poke him, 9 times since you had to pay for it once. So basically you double it all up with Infiltrate and the Phoenix Force global, and then poke him and poke him and poke him and poke him until finally, between the Red Dragon global and this repeated poking, you could get up to, I think it was 162 damage on turn 4.
Including the 2 that you did from the Red Dragon.
Yes, that's
purchases.
Important not to forget
So
that.
so he got up to an attack of 160. That's pretty impressive for a single character.
But I believe that our listeners can do better because, as I say, it seems like we have a lot more tools now. There's only so many globals you can put on a team, to be fair. But show us what you've got. I think there's a meme for that, right?
Yes. Yeah, indeed. Well, with that, we will throw down the gauntlet then in that case, shall we? And just ask who out there can beat. Well, 162 is what James did with essentially one character, I suppose, wasn't it, James?
You can use as many characters as you want, but in my case, it was turn 4. But you need not worry about it being blocked or mitigated in any way whatsoever.
So can you beat that 162 damage on turn 4 that James managed to do with that extremely convoluted fixing combination? Now, remember, you don't actually have to be able to reproduce this in the game because
I want to see a live video.
You get perfect rolls. Maybe you might be able to beat the 226 damage that Peter managed to do in an actual game, which is possibly even more impressive. But for those of you who love tinkering and coming up with ingenious ways of doing damage to your opponent, then this is right up your street. So let us know how much damage you can do by turn 4, and we'll put some notes at the end of the show so you can see the Fix It video, and you can respond to it and have a go yourself. All right, let's move on to the next segment. All right, well, Spug and James here just to round off the episode. And the first thing we wanted to talk about was some spoiler and future release date news. James, there's been some hot news over the last few days. What's happened?
Well, there was a release, there was an escape of some information concerning new products slated for release over the course of 2021. And in fact, a confirmation of Dark Phoenix Saga, which is for November in the US and who knows when in Europe. Although they do now, if you live in the UK and a few other select countries, I think Germany, for example, you can directly order from WizKids, which is pretty cool. I feel sorry for the friendly local game shops, but anyway, so Dark Phoenix is confirmed in the US for November, but perhaps more excitingly, for 2021, they have slated the release of a Fantastic Four and Galactus solo play experience, apparently for beginners. Very exciting. And then in April, they've got Superman Kryptonite Crisis draft packs. That's the only DC stuff on the release schedule. The Secret Wars draft packs are slated for June, which I'm quite excited about. I'm hoping for some Doctor Doom there, quite frankly. And finally, a House Full of X's. So some more X-Men in September. Obviously, these dates are all subject to change, but you would imagine that this stuff would be released at some point in the future, which is kind of exciting.
It is really, and people are getting particularly excited about the solo play Fantastic Four stuff that's due to come out. That hasn't got a sort of a street date yet, has it, in terms of when that might arrive? But we're hoping that'll be quite soon. But that does sound exciting. And then also the Secret Wars set, I think, is getting people particularly excited too, because that's a new thing that people didn't know was coming, I think, broadly. So definitely something to look forward to. On the kind of bad news side, it looks as if the Spider-Man campaign box and associated team packs have been cancelled by WizKids. There hasn't been an official confirmation from them yet, but they've disappeared from the sort of upcoming products solicits page. So our experts tell us, so that looks like it might have been canned. And that means that all of the stuff coming up, well, apart from Fantastic Four and Galactus, over the next year, looks like it's going to be blind products. So it's kind of, we're swinging back into that.
There are theories, though, that some of the cards that we may have seen already from Spider-Man may be integrated perhaps into one of the draft pack sets. Secret Wars might be a good opportunity for that. And some of them we've already seen as OP cards, which were spoiled by DM North. So I'll be very upset if I don't get my Aunt May blazer. That would be sad.
Yeah, the kind of the new blanking Constantine type character that was spoiled a long time ago, wasn't it? But yeah, we hope to see that appearing somewhere. So that's exciting that we've got some new product coming anyway, that we know that there is future stuff in the pipeline.
There's life in the game yet.
Totally is. There totally is. So that's good news. So we look forward to hearing more news about that in due course. Shall we talk about Worlds, James?
Yes, let's, Smug.
Because it's coming up very soon. In fact, 9th to the 11th of October, CR Game Room are putting on a kind of a 3-day Worlds event with side events on the Friday and the Sunday, and then the main kind of Worlds event on the Saturday. And that's looking really interesting. We've got confirmation of some of what the side events are going to look like. We've got on the Friday, there's going to be a modern 10x10 event, just with 3 cards banned: Becky Lynch, Maiden Island, the Godcatcher, Famous Walking Statue, and Thor, Jormungand's Fear. Probably no great surprise there. Mm-hmm. Then after the main event on Saturday, there are 2 events scheduled for the Sunday: a Global Escalation event and a Golden event. So if you want to see some utter filth, those would be the ones to play in.
Do go and check out the Hall of Filth, which I've now renamed in your honour, Spug.
Rightly so.
Which lists all of the winning top 2 teams from all of our Dice Fight Legacy events, which was started off with all of Golden except a couple of cards that WizKids have banned. So that really is all of the most horrible, nasty teams that you might want to play in the Golden tournament. I'll put a link in the show notes, and also I'll put a link to our spoilers video, which I forgot to mention about the stuff that we mentioned earlier.
Also, we are due to be putting up one of our Chronicles videos. That's a series of short videos on YouTube that James has been doing, looking at new kind of big winning meta teams. He's recording one with our very own Ben on his Becky Lynch team that won the Roll for the North event just the other day. So if you want to look out for that, then go to our YouTube channel or check out our website. James, on the Dice Fight front, what's coming up over the next couple of weeks?
Well, this week's bug, since the coming weekend is the Worlds that we've just mentioned, we've got practice for that. So Unlimited Modern, fully read.
The 8th of October.
Thank you. Very good with your dates. Gird your loins for that. And then the following week, which I imagine would be the 15th of October, something green and thematic. I don't think we've fully decided on that, but it will be something a bit more friendly.
Yeah. Crack out your allies.Maybe we should do an allies tournament, James.
Ooh, there's a thought. Okay.
If there's something using the keyword allies based on what we've
quite nice, yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's pretty much everything from us. We should just remind you not to forget that you can get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you if you enjoyed anything particularly from this episode, or you want to feedback on anything that we've said. If you've got a way of doing more damage than James managed to achieve, was it 162, James, on turn 4?
Sounds about right, yep.
If you can beat James's 162 damage on turn 4 with maybe newer cards that have since been released since James did that video with Zach back in the day, then do let us know. How do people get in touch with us, James?
They can comment anywhere on the website, or they can find us on Facebook as DM United, or they can write us an email, and the address is hello@dmunited.eu.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And thank you to you for listening. It's been great to have your company with us over the past hour. If you've enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe using your favorite podcast app. Otherwise, until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
It just looks like a brown guinea pig, really.
No.
What's wrong with you?
Oh, no, it doesn't now. No one is crawling around because it's got a big fat tail.
It doesn't look like a guinea pig at all.
Yeah, well, it did when she was holding it.
The groundhog, maybe, but not the guinea pig.
Yeah.
Oh, tiny little eyes.
I'm turning that off now.
I'm not. I'm going to watch it on a loop all the time.
All right, should we do something productive?
Yeah.
But it's so cute.